So yeah, there's been a ton of drama in D&D this week, following a major Dungeons & Dragons scandal that has forced the cancellation and recall of a flagship major Dungeons & Dragons product. This is an event that I have never seen before, but on reflection, it probably should have happened a long time ago. And though this might result in the end of a major D&D partner and even a crisis for Dungeons & Dragons fundamentally, it still might just be the best thing to happen for the entire TTRPG community, even if it did hit Critical Role earlier this year and was pretty devastating then. Yeah, do not adjust your television set. And that might sound insane, but hear me out, because this entire scandal is a lot bigger than most people think. So let's start at the very beginning, which is where you should start when building your very own world with today's sponsor, World Anvil. World Anvil is a set of world building tools that have to be seen to be believed. With World Anvil, you can create anything from interactive maps to historical timelines to family trees or even entire wiki articles for your world. World Anvil is invaluable for RPG fans. It supports over 106 different systems, including D&D 5th edition, of course, but that's not all. It also even lets you create your very own system. And if you're a games master, you can even use the campaign manager and virtual DM screen to run games that your players will never forget, because your campaign notes are just so coherent and well organized, and not because you attacked them. And for players out there, World Anvil also features the most extensive character management system on the internet. From character sheets to journals to inventory management to campaign notes to even a photo gallery for all of your art. Everything you could ever want for an epic, sexy adventure is here. World Anvil is truly invaluable for any RPG campaign or even just creative writing exercises. But best of all, you can right now get 51% off a yearly subscription to World Anvil by simply going to worldanvil.com and using my code DISCOURSE, or simply click the link below. You don't want to miss out on this awesome deal, and it helps support the channel, so check it out. And thanks to World Anvil for sponsoring today's video. This latest story was catapulted into the D&D community by Larian Studios, aka the developers of Baldur's Gate 3, a video game based on Dungeons & Dragons that made a lot of money and also happened to push Dungeons & Dragons into the mainstream. And that's not just because of all the bestiality within it, though that certainly helped, but also because the game was just really good. And because of the insane success of Baldur's Gate 3, Hasbro have been busy trying to cash in on its brand recognition. So it was no surprise then when an entire Baldur's Gate 3 model collection was announced by Hasbro's major partner Whiz Kids as part of their Dungeons & Dragons Icons of the Realm model line. Now, Icons of the Realm is a huge brand for Hasbro and Whiz Kids. It's a miniature line that features particularly iconic characters and monsters, and it is often tied into different D&D products and storylines, like the Saltmarsh book or even the Monster Manual. Now, Icons of the Realm gets sold in a couple of different ways. In this instance, what we were seeing was a box of 7 miniatures for $50, which is a pretty high price for only 7 miniatures. Whiz Kids justify the insane prices of their miniatures with the argument that all their minis come fully pre-painted, which is true. And yes, paying overseers to whip children into painting tiny figurines ain't as cheap as it used to be. Bloody unions. But still, $50 for 7 miniatures is above what most other miniature sellers charge, except for like Warhammer or indie companies like Corvus Belli and GCT. But also, those companies are all either notoriously expensive in the case of Warhammer, check out my Wargaming channel for that one, or very niche and made out of expensive metals and resin in the case of all the indie miniature companies. And also, the miniatures look good. Whiz Kids, on the other hand, are not an indie company. They are a very big company with one of, if not the biggest tabletop licenses in the entire world, and they are pretty much conjoined with Hasbro at the hip, who themselves are no small potatoes, which is presumably what Hasbro said to all their Irish slaves in the 90s. Haha! Yeah, I'm never gonna let that one go. But then this week, Whiz Kids They enslaved my people. But then this week, Whiz Kids might have just gone too far. See, people were really excited for these new Baldur's Gate 3 Icons of the Realm miniatures. But then they actually arrived. And the senior cinematic artist at Larian Studios started posting about them on Twitter. Because it turns out that these Whiz Kid miniatures, these expensive flagship Icons of the Realm D&D miniatures, are bad. Like, really bad. So here is what they should look like according to all the advertisements from Whiz Kids. Okay, nice, not bad. There's all my favorite NPCs and Gale. But here is what people got. It looks like that guy in RoboCop. You know the one, the guy that explodes? And here's Gale, obviously known for his receding hairline. I mean, what are they making these minis out of? Marzipan? This one has clearly been in some sort of industrial accident. I hope they've spoken to a tribunal. So yeah, these are the proverbial worst miniatures ever made, and they were revealed on Twitter and completely lambasted by absolutely everybody. But then those pictures got shared around, and then more and more and more people started sharing pictures of the Baldur's Gate 3 minis that arrived for them. And here's the thing, they're just as bad. But then it got even worse because reviewers started to, well, review them. And major online publications started covering the story, and it turns out that this is the quality of the Baldur's Gate 3 official miniatures across the board. And frankly, these new minis are just not what Whiz Kids have advertised. These are not comparable to the promotional pictures at all. I mean, compare the quality of the actual miniatures to the advertised promotional images. It's the biggest gulf between expectation and reality outside of the mind of Steven Seagal. It's truly indefensible, much like Steven Seagal. And this has started to get picked up on, and in fact things got so bad for Whiz Kids that they actually, for the first time that I've ever seen, they were forced to recall the miniatures entirely and issue a refund to every single person that purchased this trash. They even issued a statement saying that they missed the mark with the D&D Icons of the Realm set, and that they are aware of the recent reports and complaints and are taking them seriously. In fact, they are currently investigating these issues and taking action to make this right for those whose purchases were negatively affected, and to ensure these issues do not recur in future products and reprints. So, okay, it went bad, but it got better, right? Good on Whiz Kids. Well, okay. It's good that the model have been recalled, but honestly, this is incredibly embarrassing for Whiz Kids, and also for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro too, because while those guys aren't Whiz Kids, they are extremely close partners with Whiz Kids. They've done so much licensing with Whiz Kids for so long that Whiz Kids' actions 100% reflect on Hasbro and their own quality control. Like if you were to recommend your painter cousin to a friend that needs their ceiling painted, and then they double-deckered your buddy's toilet. Like, yeah, okay, you got some splaining to do on games night. But even this statement overall from Whiz Kids has a major problem. It's, in fact, pretty fatal, because the entire statement is a lie. See, believe it or not, this scandal gets a lot worse from here. This story isn't just about the recall of a single product. It goes way deeper, and it has massive ramifications for the entire hobby. Because Whiz Kids claim that they are currently investigating the issues of the poor quality of these miniatures to ensure these issues do not recur in future products and reprints. But like, I got really bad news for everybody, including Whiz Kids it seems. But these Baldur's Gate 3 miniatures, they aren't surprising. These are what every single Whiz Kids Icons of the Realm miniatures look like. I mean, to those wondering how these models got through quality control at Whiz Kids, well, this is the quality that Whiz Kids are controlling for. You can see it in every single other model they release too. These are fundamentally what Whiz Kids models always look like. So why the hell are Whiz Kids pretending otherwise? These miniatures are mass produced and painted in factories in China. They are not created by artisans in wherever it is that artisans live. I think it's in Spyro. So that means a couple of things. Firstly, that the false advertising that Whiz Kids is being accused of in this instance hasn't just happened the one time like Whiz Kids are kind of pretending in their statement. It happens in every single product that they sell. It's happening with Dungeons and Dragons Dragons miniatures right now, with Pathfinder miniatures, Critical Role miniatures as well. Hell, the Critical Role miniatures were actually cancelled recently because not enough people were buying them, presumably because the quality level of the miniatures are so low, and that's not what people collecting miniatures want. I mean, I hate to say it, but Whiz Kids miniatures are the fire festival of the miniatures world. And there were people there slashing other people's tents because they didn't want neighbors at their camping festival. And yet Whiz Kids pretend otherwise. They are not honest about the quality of their minis. They pretend in their promotional pictures that they put out really high level minis. I mean, they're pretending as much in their recall statement too. And they've been getting away with it for a really long time. And as a result, I think that we all got a little used to how Whiz Kids do things as well. We all got a little bit complacent. But how have they gotten away with this for so long? I mean, they release amazing pictures of models that have been pre-rendered digitally, but then when you buy them and they actually arrive, they look more like House of Wax victims. How have we accepted this for so long? And that's why this specific release has blown up into such a major scandal here, because these Baldur's Gate models were sold to an audience that had never seen Whiz Kids quality models before. An audience that could say, hold on,
what the hell is even that?
That doesn't look anything like what the picture suggested. And it has given the entire D&D community a bit of perspective. Because this time the miniatures have been sold to an audience that are not gamers. Well, they are gamers, they have played Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm talking about real gamers, not video gamers with their VR headsets and racial slurs. I'm talking about real analog gamers who have to do racial slurs to your face, which is also probably why it crops up less at D&D tables. Well, most D&D tables anyway. But it took that Baldur's Gate 3 audience who bought these models expecting them to be the level of quality that so many other miniature figurines are at, that the price of the models suggest, that the pictures that Whiz Kids literally made promises them to be at. So yeah, anyone who bought these should be outraged. These should be recalled. But so should probably most of the model line. And look, I think there is a market for badly pre-painted miniatures in D&D and RPGs for gaming. Lots of people don't want to paint their models, and the Whiz Kids minis do look kind of fine, you know, from a distance, admittedly a significant distance. They work okay as gaming miniatures. Hell, they tend to be made of really flexible plastic, so you can throw them at your players and probably not kill them. What they aren't, however, are display miniatures. You would not put these beside your Warhammer or other figurines on a bookcase. But Whiz Kids keep trying to sell them as collectible miniatures, and they keep doctoring pictures of them to pretend like they're higher quality. And then they keep putting them in randomized booster boxes and hoping that you'll get this mad, gambling, addicted, collect them all mindset. There's no other way to put it. This is all deceptive marketing practices, and as a community, we have been way too comfortable with that for way too long. So I hope this latest scandal embarrasses Whiz Kids to fundamentally change how they produce these miniatures, or honestly, simply convince Wizards of the Coast to rethink how they're licensing their official products, because Whiz Kids have gotten into a lot of trouble this year. First it was cancelling the Critical Role miniatures, and now it's this abomination. I mean, who knows what it'll be next? Probably the minis will come alive and kill somebody, like that Stephen King story where a hitman has to fight an army of green army men. And Stephen King did a lot of coke in the 80s. But this all begs the question, are Whiz Kids even going to re-release these Baldur's Gate minis? Because any other miniatures they produce are going to look as bad as this and try to be delivered to the same audience. So I think that Whiz Kids honestly just have to cancel this entire product range and just take the hit, which is a huge blow to the company. I mean, can they really survive by canceling all of their miniatures? We might soon find out. So subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with the developing story, and check out my Patreon to help support my coverage of these sorts of topics. It's only thanks to patrons that I can keep this channel afloat. Massive thanks to my patrons, especially CryptoKev, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.